モーサテプレミアムの動画をご覧いただき、いつもありがとうございます。今回は全世界で1700兆円を運用する世界最大の資産運用会社ブラックロックの最高幹部へのインタビューをお届けします。インタビューしたのはブラックロックの運用資産のうちおよそ3分の1の運用を統括するリーダー氏ですが、その彼が次期トランプ政権の発足を見据えて金融市場の動き、マーケットをどうこれから見ていくのか、その投資戦略などを聞いています。ではインタビュー動画をご覧ください。
So we will see Trump administration 2.0 and we will see red sweep situation in US politics. Could you tell us what could be the new playbook for investors?
Yeah, I mean, you went from an economy that was operating at a good level with inflation coming down. Whenever a new administration comes in, all of a sudden new initiatives try and get growth a bit higher, but also this administration has talked about using tariffs as a tool to negotiate trade, negotiate across the world. That tends to be inflationary. So what we have to think about with regard to fixed income particularly is how do you think about interest rates? And I think the way the world has marked interest rates back 50 to 100 basis points higher, that sounds about right to me. And now you've got you've increased the uncertainty bands around that. And so markets have become a bit more volatile, but we're going to learn more over the next month or two. What is policy going to look like? And my sense is markets will calm down and you'll reduce some of that volatility.
I see. So, but the markets are slightly worried about the inflation factor. The drill baby drill policy could be very inflationary, and also the tariff, so it could be inflationary. The deregulation could have a momentum, could give a momentum to the economy, and the inflationary factor or disinflationary factor, which wins or neck and neck situation.
So I think the way the president has run his election campaign is about bringing inflation down, and then he, after he won, he said promises made, promises kept. If that's right, you would think that the direction of travel was try and bring inflation down. The market's perception of that in the interim may be that inflation moves higher because of tariffs tend to be inflationary. My sense is that you won't see broad-based tariffs across multiple countries or across the globe generally. The idea around bringing down energy costs, because in the US, gas prices, petrol prices are the most important for most consumers. So my sense is you should assume today inflation's a bit higher as we transition. But I think ultimately, if they do a good job with it, ultimately you could get inflation coming down.
So you have a quite strong view on the U.S. economy. So that people are discussing about hard landing, soft landing. But your message was, U.S. economy is like a satellite. It will not touch down on the ground. Am I correct?
Yeah, no, I don't understand the hard landing thesis. I've said, satellites don't really land. They just circle around. Every now and then you got to put a little energy into those satellites. And I think that's where we are. If you break down the economy, I think what people don't realize, service economy, as an economy becomes more service-oriented, services are much, much more stable. They tend to mean 70% of the U.S. is services. What people spend on healthcare, what they spend on education, what they spend on their phone, on internet, they tend to be very stable. When an economy is very stable like that, you don't have that sort of iterations of hard landing, soft landing. Hard landings are more of when you had an old manufacturing, commodity, oil-based economy. Today, when you have a service economy, it tends to be very stable. And you've seen that play out. And twice this year, people have said, oh my God, we're going to hard landing, the Fed's behind, needs to catch up. And both times it's been proven wrong.
So you're in the no landing camp or soft landing camp? Which are you in?
I'm in the no landing, and it depends how you interpret soft landing. Because we've been operating at such high levels of growth, I guess soft landing will be still growing, but I'm in the, I really don't think it's that cyclical, and I think it tends to be, we'll just continue to grow. You had in the third quarter, you had almost 3% growth, real growth, again. It's impressive.
So you don't see the risk of the recession, but still the Fed has to cut the interest rate.
So I think the Fed should cut interest rates because what's happened while you have an economy in aggregate that's doing quite well, you have a lot of people that are having a hard time. Because what's happened is when you keep the interest rate high, it actually benefits a lot of savers in the economy, older people who have saved, and they actually benefit from higher interest rates. The problem is that lower income and middle income are having a hard time. Cost of a mortgage is over 7% again. Bring that rate down. If you bring that rate down, it won't really hurt it won't hurt the ability to keep inflation down. And so I think they still have to get it down. But I think now they're going to take their time, and they're going to see what does the new administration mean. But I don't worry about it. I think the Fed should still get it down in December, another 25 basis points, and I still think you can get another couple of rate cuts done next year.
Oh, I see. The end of last year and the beginning of this year, the people thought that, oh, now is the time to invest in bonds because the rates are so high. Now prices are going to be very much more higher in years, months to come. But what we've seen is a kind of higher for longer situation. And now we might see much higher, much longer situation. How do you see that?
So I think the long end interest rates, depending on what spending looks like, depending on what inflation looks like, longer term interest rates, you're not getting paid for being in longer term interest rates. The beauty of fixed income today is you actually capture almost all the yield in earlier on the yield curve, 2-year paper, 3-year maturity bonds. That's what I think is so exciting about fixed income, that it's all about income, 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 and I don't have to take a lot of risks to create that sort of yield. So what you're seeing today in a lot of markets, like the high yield bond market, some of the residential real estate mortgage markets, is people are like, I just want the income. And it's I call it the golden age of fixed income. The reason why I think it's a golden age of fixed income is the Fed's got the interest rate high. You can buy 2-year, 3-year, you don't have to buy 30-year paper or 10-year paper, but you can buy a lot of what are reasonably good quality assets and get a lot of income without taking a lot of risk. I've been doing this a really long time. That's a very unusual point in history to be able to do that.
I see. 1 or 2 years ago, we talked about the terminal rate.
Yeah.
Terminal is a kind of top. So if we talk about the terminal rate at the bottom, what could be the terminal rate at the bottom?
I mean, historically, we've said the terminal rate was